What's up, print fam? Welcome back to the print shop. You know me, I love the laser side of the print shop business. So today we're going to talk about what laser is best. Guess what? There is no best laser. There's a best laser for you and for your customers, but there's no actual best laser. What is a better term is what are you wanting? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to use it for? Because that will help you determine which one will fit your needs the best. But there's really no such thing as the best laser. So let's jump into the lasers that I have and then some suggestions that I have, because some of these are really good for what I use them for. Some of you might get something better. So let's talk about it. All right, the first laser we're going to talk about is kind of the first one that I bought, which is the one to do pens. Now, is this the best laser to do pens? No, but the quote-unquote best laser is probably $100,000. This is a good laser. It works awesome. I purchased the rotary table to automate the process a little bit. I have got a video down in the description that I talk about all the pricing of the lasers, so you can go check that out. But this one is really good. So a fiber laser is really good for metals. So it is good for marking metals. So I actually have two fiber lasers that are good for marking metals. This one is a MOPA laser, so it has different frequencies, which allow you to get colors or do different types of engravings. So that's why I have both, because while I can run pens on this one, why? This one is really good at it, and this one's really good for all my other marking stuff. So I do a lot of promotional products, which is why the Galvo lasers work really well, because usually I'm marking something that's only a few inches. Here, Bob, that's for you. Only a few inches big. So this is really good for about 7 by 7 inches at max. So this is really good. Now, the reason I ended up getting the CO2 Galvo was because I've been doing a lot of promotional products that are not metal. So you can actually see I was doing this journal. Try to get my zoom right here. Sorry. Doing this journal, and I had to play with the settings a ton and figure it out to get it to work, because ideally I should have done this on the CO2. So could I do it on the fiber? Absolutely. Did I mess up one of the journals? Yes, I did. You can see like this one started on fire when I was running it. So too deep, not deep enough, etc. So that's where having one of these other lasers is better. So that's what I got the CO2 Galvo for, because running journals is super fast, super efficient on this. Can I run them on a gantry? Absolutely. It's just way slower, because a gantry, you have to go back and forth. So if you're doing a name, like let's say I was running this name here and I had it in the gantry laser, it has to go back and forth 1,000 times in order to run this. Now, obviously, if I ran it this way, it would be faster. But what if I can't fit it in the bed that way? Now, with a Galvo, it just has mirrors, so it's just able to or go super fast. But now we can look at like the pro con of this. Running tumblers on this takes longer, but I have more flexibility than running tumblers on my Galvo machine, because my Galvo machine, I got to make jigs, got to make sure I hold them, they're flat, level, etc. So I have to have all these jigs, versus on the gantry, I just have kind of the universal rotary attachment that makes it really easy to switch which type of tumbler you're running. Now, to show you that, I have these 40-ounce tumblers that I buy, and it became very apparent the issue when I ran this tumbler, and it fits perfect in my jig. The handle is 122 millimeters. This handle is 128 millimeters. It no longer fits in my jig. But if I was running it on the gantry, it wouldn't have been noticeable. But the reason why I like the Galvo is this specific logo takes 6.5 minutes on the gantry laser. Did it in 45 seconds on the Galvo. So it's worth it. But again, that's why there's no best, because it's variable of what you want to do and how you want to do it. Now, cutting acrylic on the Galvo CO2, can it technically do it? Yeah, you could, but it's better to do it on the gantry. Now, I have Chinese lasers. They're cheap. They typically require some like willingness to put in some work to get them to work. If you don't want to do that, then you need to step up. That's where you can buy like the Epilogue, the Trotec. Even if you bought like the OM Tech Polar or the Glowforge, they all have their pros and cons. They all have different prices. They all have different things that they're good at. Like the Glowforge won't do tumblers. The Polar, I think you can get an attachment so you can. But again, that's why there's really no such thing as best. Now, the other thing that I want to impress upon you is what type of laser should you get? So really, there are probably more types, but the 4 types that I know and consider when I'm purchasing something to do something in my shop is you have a diode laser, you have a fiber laser, you have a CO2 laser, and then you have a UV laser. So a diode laser, a really popular one is the X tool, because you can get them for relatively inexpensive. I will link some down in the description. And they're very universal. They can do like some metal marking, they can cut, they can engrave, they can do tumblers, they can do flat stuff. So they're a really nice universal laser. They don't have a lot of power and they're slow. And then, like I said, with fiber lasers are really meant to do metal. You can get fiber lasers in both the Galvo and the gantry format. So what you're doing is just dependent on what you're buying. Then you've got the CO2, which again, you can get them in both gantry and Galvo format. And again, you need to look at what you're doing and how you're trying to process things. And then you have the UV laser. So basically, diode can almost do anything. It's just not as proficient at metal marking. Fiber is made for metal, but can do some other things. CO2 is more meant for organic type materials like wood, leather, stuff like that. And then UV, I'm going to sneeze. I have only seen UV in the Galvo style, but they could come in the gantry. But Galvo or UV is really good at like glass and plastics. I'm sure it can do other things. That's just kind of what I've looked at and why people like and want them is for glass and plastics. So keep that in mind. What I would do is if you're interested in buying a laser, look at what you want to do. Whether it's I want to cut out acrylic and make signs, or I want to make wood signs, or I want to engrave tumblers, and figure out from there, because the money that you're going to spend to buy the laser, I would suggest that you can like basically pay yourself back as fast as possible, but at least within 18 months. That's kind of my recommendation, is if you're buying a piece of equipment, try to make it so that within 18 months, you can pay yourself back. Now myself, I was able to pay my lasers off in 3 months. So it's been highly worth it. Super, super awesome. But look at it and say, what is it that I want to do? And based off of what you want to do, then I would find one that fits that mold really, really well. And sometimes you might be restrained by budget. So it might be, I want to do a bunch of things. And so the diode is going to be good for you because it's a low entry point and it can get you started on a lot of things, but it's just not going to be done really fast. Or like if you want to do tumblers, you can usually get a gantry laser for less, but it's just going to take more time to process tumblers. But the nice thing about the gantry is it can also do flat products versus like a Galvo can't. So it just depends. Now, the one thing that you get when you go from like the cheap Chinese to like the American made or the bigger brands, like if you go to Epilogue or Trotec, Epilogue has like a 0-0 point, so it's really easy for like jigging and templating. So does the Trotec, but Epilogue, Trotec, and I can't remember the other one, they also have a library of materials. So you're not like with my OM Tech, with my fiber lasers, I'm having to go through and kind of guess the first time. One of the things that you get by buying the name brands is that they've done a lot of that legwork and homework for you. So it's really a matter of you going and selecting it. And that's the same thing like with a Glowforge. With a Glowforge, you're also just buying the fact that, hey, I'm doing 1/2 inch acrylic, or I'm doing MDF, or I'm doing whatever. They've built a library of settings so you don't really have to mess with it yourself. So that's what you're getting with a name brand versus a Chinese laser. You're also getting, for the most part, like the Epilogue runs an RF tube versus a glass tube. And so you get different benefits based off of where you go, but you also are going to spend more money. So keep that in mind. Are you more of a tinkerer, or are you more of, I just want it done and want to start moving forward and making money immediately? So there's some things to consider. Again, if you have specific questions, make sure you join the Facebook group. We're happy to help. If you want to get more like one-on-one hand-holding from me, what I would do in your situation, we do have the paid community that I'll link down below as well, that comes with extra perks and benefits. So again, if you have any questions, happy to help. But really what this comes down to is there is no best laser. There's a best laser for you, or a best laser for what you're trying to accomplish, but there's no like quote-unquote best laser. Thanks, Prefam. We'll see you in the next one.